When your boss fires an employee over nothing, sometimes you have to maliciously comply. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, charge truck battery at point B because it's cheaper. This ain't my story, but a friend's who's a truck driver. Recently, the contractor company said friend's boss works with got an electric truck. This is a big company. They already got a few of them, but at a different location, where charging is far easier due to many stations around. Because it seems to go well. Yeah, seems, because next year the electric trucks won't be exempt from paying tolls, and mind you, an electric truck costs twice as much as a full-option Scania. They thought it'd be a great idea and good promo to get another e-truck at the location my friend works at. Only before ordering, nobody checked on charging stations or even the distances and roads this guy drives, only that his hometown is practical for their endeavor. Now comes the good part. Turns out, we ain't got many stations that can charge a truck. I'm no electrician by any means, but I'd still consider myself technically apt. So I went through the hassle to talk to this company, tried explaining that charging a battery is like filling a barrel, only that you attach the hose to the bottom, so you need a certain amount of X of base pressure to get that crap flowing, and because most charging stations only pack 75 to 150 kilowatt, that's a no-go for a truck. The only 300 kilowatt station in the area is located in the next city. Not too far, but traffic sucks. Imagine driving an hour to make a 10-mile distance. But management had other problems entirely. Turns out, their problem was that the 300 kilowatt station charges, to know the exact value, methinks like 80 CT to kilowatt to the 150 kilowatt station. However, costs only 65 CT to kilowatt. So they demanded he charge the truck where it's cheaper. And here it gets even better. This here's the reason why I tried reasoning with them, to no avail of course. Not every charging station is built to accommodate a truck, not even the ones that pack 300 kilowatts. Which means my man here has to first find an empty space to leave his trailer. Once you're done with that, you still gotta find an empty lot to park and charge. And once you're there, there's still the possibility of someone parking next to you and grabbing the second charging cable of the station, which then halves the performance to 75 kilowatts. Just for reference, even charging at a 300 kilowatt station takes 2 hours. So after our arguments hit a brick wall, he gave in. You want me to waste valuable time on a P4 charger just because it's a little bit cheaper? Fine. Next day, he proceeds to charging. After 2 or 3 hours, the office gets the jitters, because work keeps piling up and they can't always manage to bring the freight in time. So they call him. Aren't you done charging yet? Nope, not even close, buddy. When the F are you planning on returning? We need you at work. You know a truck only brings in money when it's rolling, not parking. I ain't the one that came up with the idea to charge a frickin' truck at a 150 kilowatt station. You sent me here. I tried explaining it to you, but you wouldn't listen, and unless you want me to come over just to look for the next charging station, you'll have to wait. How long? Well, I just hit the 17% mark, so I'ma be here for a while. He was camped out there the whole day, didn't get crap done, and at the end, the battery still wasn't fully charged. They never bothered him again. Okay, so we have started off with a wild banger of a story on this one. I think it would have made a little bit more sense if I just read the whole thing in the whole southern drawl to keep up with the lingo being used. But anyway, the one line that stood out to me the most in this story was when OP was like, could you imagine taking an hour to go 10 miles? And I'm like, brother, I live in LA. That's just another day at the beach out here. If you're lucky, you can get 10 miles in an hour. Kodiako1 commented, 20 years at class 4 to 8 truck dealer here. The lead time to get the municipal approvals, lines of sufficient capacity run, and getting a charger installed and running is currently 18 to 36 months, and that's a generous estimate. This is assuming the local grid has the infrastructure and capacity to handle it. One fleet out in California made the decision a couple of years ago to go full BEV. In all, about 50 trucks were desired. To service them, he would need about 10 chargers installed at his facility. Electric company came back and told him he was nuts, that they couldn't supply that much power. At most, they could stretch things to allow him 3 chargers. This is one fleet. Now multiply that by all the other fleets out there, many several times larger, yet in California, Oregon, and as of January 2025, Massachusetts, you can't even buy a diesel truck unless the dealer has already sold a BEV. For Massachusetts, it starts out as 1 BEV registered in the state, allows 8 diesels to be sold. The ratio goes down over time. The problem? There are no other BEVs available in the state. There are refuse applications, but you can't use credits earned on those vehicles to be able to sell conventional tractors. Even then, since 2022, the highest selling BEV dealer of refused trucks has sold 6 since 2022. Only 4 of which actually registered in Massachusetts. After a major uproar, Massachusetts changed things to exempt municipalities. That's government for you. Diesel's for me, but not for thee. Also, hi, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these malicious compliance videos, it'd be awesome if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to our podcast. That said, our next story is, I have to drive this truck? Okay. So back in the day, I was a truck driver. The company had a few trucks that were made for different jobs. Depending on the job you had to deliver determined the truck you drove. So it was not too uncommon to drive 3 different trucks in one day. The company was pee-poor on maintenance of the vehicles. Over the years with them, I received a few fines for things like no inspection and stuff like that. Even though I received the fine, the company would pay the fine. No harm, no foul. Finally, our big truck really started to go downhill. It got to the point where it was barely running and needed a ton of repairs costing thousands to fix. I told the company I refused to drive the truck as it was an accident waiting to happen. Well, this lasted a week, and then they said I needed to drive the truck for one delivery. Unfortunately, I agreed out of a need to be a team player and service my customer. The drive was horrible. I was leaving a trail of smoke 10 feet high as I drove down the highway. I knew I was in trouble when they loaded a case of motor oil in the cab for me to fill the engine if needed. On the way there in the AM, cars behind me were turning on their high beams to see because of the smoke trail I was leaving. Then, as the sun finally came up, people were pulling up next to me on the highway, honking and giving me the finger. I found out so much liquid oil was coming out the exhaust that oil was landing on the vehicles behind me. It was only a 50-mile round trip, and the truck lost 24 quarts of oil and almost a tank of fuel. So again, I told them I would not drive the truck till it's fixed. As a truck driver, you're required to do a pre-trip inspection of the vehicle prior to driving every day. You mark down the defects, and there's room for notes in the logbook. 1 copy stays in the truck and 1 copy goes to the company. There's a 3rd copy that goes to DOT if requested. I made sure to fill this out fully every time I drove this truck. I also made a separate list, mostly as a note for myself, covering things I thought was important, but not necessarily a part of the pre-trip inspection. The next day I came in and found the truck fully loaded. I told them I was not driving the truck. They said, well, you have to. After a quick thought, I said, okay. Cue malicious compliance. I pulled out of the lot. At the traffic light, I'd make a left to head to the job. However, I was out of fuel, so I had to turn right to get to the gas station to fuel up, then backtrack to head to the job. And yes, I meant gas. It was a 33K pound truck with a gas engine. Well, DOT was set up on the other side of the road just before the gas station. They watched as I drove by, wishing they could get me. In case you don't know, DOT stands for Department of Transportation. For big trucks, they run the weigh stations on the highway, but in heavy truck areas, they set up a mobile station and inspect trucks randomly. They verify paperwork is in order and the vehicle and driver are safe. Any fines here are expensive. Plus, they can put a truck out of service, meaning it cannot be driven till repaired. At that point, it must be towed and fixed. Then I pull in the fuel station. As I'm filling, I can feel them watching me. So I leave the fuel station and head back towards DOT. They run out into the street to make me pull in. They wanted this truck. I pull in and shut down the truck. The DOT cop walks up to the truck with a creeper. I say, why do you need that? He says, what? I say, the creeper. He says, I gotta check your truck. I say, nah, I got a list. I hand him my notes and logbook. He says, then he goes back to his car and I can see him furiously writing. After about 30 minutes, he comes back. He says to me, why are you driving this truck? I tell him they told me I had to. There's no other truck? He asks. Nope, I reply. What happens if you don't drive this? He asks. I say, I guess I sit at home. He says, I'll be right back. After about another 20 minutes, he comes back to me. He slaps a big red out of service tag on the windshield. Then he tells me there are 21 issues that are putting the truck out of service, plus I'm giving the company a fine for letting you drive this truck. Unfortunately, your fuel tax sticker is expired. If I write you up for this, it's a $10,000 fine to you. But I called in the local cops. It will be a $90 fine for you that the company should pay. I thank him and he leaves. I call the company and get a ride back to the warehouse. Bottom line, they paid all fines, which were north of $65,000 including towing. The next week, we had a fleet of new leased trucks with a maintenance plan with replacement trucks if ours were down for issues. And they came out and washed the trucks twice a month. I worked there another 2 years and quit because of other truck issues. A competitor poached me with better money. But this goes to show, I'm not risking my life and the public's life for your job. In the end, you paid for a $65,000 lesson. When I say I'm not doing it unless it's safe. Then I pull in the fuel station. As I'm filling, I can feel them watching me. I mean, I don't know if this is even really malicious compliance if you're putting yourself at risk by driving this ticking time bomb of a truck just to do a job. It was only a matter of time before this operation got blown up, no pun intended, but yeah, glad that you found a better job and are safe now. Dr_StrangeGloveGA commented, opposite story here. I used to drive for Coca-Cola and they maintained our trucks to a ridiculous standard. I went through one of those things OP is talking about, where they were stopping every truck and jumping all over it. Except me. I stopped, expecting to get told where to park, and the officer says, nah man, just keep on going. I know we ain't gonna find crap wrong with that truck. Waste of our time. Nice knowing you worked for a company that cared. Our next story is, boss wants meat? Okay. We had a workplace potluck. I'm vegetarian, so I can make a lot of dishes without meat by simply substituting meat with seasoned tofu. My boss, despite knowing this, explicitly told me that it had to have meat. No problems, boss. I made tofu curry and sprinkled some fried grasshoppers in it. It's a health food fad. I brought it to the potluck and told everyone it had grasshopper meat in it. Still got to have the free alcoholic drinks my boss brought though. Yeah, nothing says screw you boss more than sprinkling grasshopper chunks onto your tofu and bringing it to a potluck. Very random, but I'm here for it. I like it. Wouldn't eat it, but it's a good story. Astral Tater commented, next time you just ignore a boss that demands you make something you don't eat. I would have eaten your tofu, but with grasshoppers, I think I would pass. Kinda don't like the insect diet. I'm a proud non-vegan, but I do love vegan food as long as they're not trying to replace some food like vegan burgers. Vegan food is just as good as like the nut steak thingy or tofu rice stuff. Not entirely sure what a potluck is, but I guess that's when people bring food to work and share fun ways to try different cultured food in a multicultural society, as long as you can bring what you like. Fat_Henry responded saying, a potluck at work is to show that they're family. Yes, sometimes it does include trying new things, possibly from different cultures. Here in America, it's usually one person brings a soda, another brings chips, crisps, somebody will bring potato salad, and usually a few people who dare to eat it get sick. A few folks will bring different desserts. The company usually springs for the meat, which is almost always hot dogs and/or hamburgers. Potlucks kinda suck. That's why I rarely participate in them. If I have to be involved with one, I usually opt to bring 4 or 5 2-liter bottles of soda. Our next story is, let your best employee go? I'll take it all down with me. This happened a couple of years ago, but I was thinking about it recently. I worked for a company during their media design, graphic design, photography, live event AV, video editing, etc. This company held big events, and over my years at the company, I was given more and more unrelated responsibilities until I was doing the jobs of at least 4 people. They also never helped pay for any materials, so all of the necessary media equipment was paid for out of pocket. All of them had my name on them to make sure that it wouldn't get lost if I lent it out. Over the years, I had accumulated a pretty impressive supply through secondhand purchases and watching for deals. By the time I hit my 5th year there, I had thousands of dollars in high-end equipment that was used for almost every part of the organization's promotion and event production. I think you can see where this is going. One day, I was brought into my boss's office and told that they would be downsizing and had found someone fresh out of college with no real-life experience that will be taking over my jobs as well as a few others. I was completely caught off guard. They then had one of the people from corporate follow me to my office to assist in cleaning out my stuff. He specifically said, take everything that's yours, you won't be coming back. So that's what I did. They clearly expected the usual paper box full of some photos and a plant, but instead, I had them hauling crate after crate of our media and event supplies to my car. I had a 2004 Ford Explorer at the time, and by the time I left, it was filled to the brim. With every box that we took out to my car, my boss began to get more and more panicked. At one time, he said, you can only take things that are yours, And through my sadness and anger, I was able to find it in me to kindly tell him that every single thing I was taking was mine, and that I kept all receipts if he wanted proof. The final nail in the coffin was when I told him that I would need access to the arena's AV booth and the catwalk. I still remember the fear in his eyes. We went and I unplugged all my cameras that I had been lending to my events team, all of which were clearly marked with my name. I felt like the Grinch just walking around and taking all the random things in the building that had my name on them. Driving away, I was heartbroken that a company I had given 200% to in every way had picked someone younger and fresh out of college to replace me. But I won't lie, the smugness of watching their face as I stripped the place bare was worth it. Looking back on it, that was the worst and most toxic job I've ever had. The company only lasted another year before they folded entirely, and I like to believe that I had a hand in that. And to think, if they had just compensated me fairly and purchased the necessary things themselves, instead of forcing me to provide my team with things, they wouldn't have had to start from scratch. So I don't think that there's anything malicious about this at all. They did you dirty. I mean, if anything, the maliciousness is on their side. And when you left, you just took the things that belonged to you that you purchased with your own hard-earned money. So go for it, Mr. Grinch. Smooze420 commented, so in other words, you have all of the necessary equipment to start your own business doing what you were doing before? Our next story is, treat the fire drill as if it was real. My great uncle passed away at 97, and I heard this great story of malicious compliance at his memorial service today. He worked for over 50 years at the same confectionery factory, and for most of that time, he was a boiler room attendant. This was just after World War II, and at the time, most of the machines and processes were powered by steam, even the heating. The steam was generated by massive boilers, and it was his job to monitor the boilers to make sure nothing went wrong. These boilers could potentially explode, causing great damage. By law, the boiler had to be attended at all times, and there were shifts that watched them around the clock, even when the factory was closed. They took so long to heat up that it was easier and cheaper to leave them running at night. After about 10 years of no incidents, the company hired a leading hand who would also act as the safety officer. He had been a sergeant in the Army, and he took his job quite seriously, being quite the disciplinarian. He instituted a multitude of new procedures, some warranted, some just to establish control. The first time he wanted to conduct a fire drill, he went around telling the staff that when they heard the alarm, they had to exit the building in an orderly fashion. He got to the boiler room, and it was my great uncle on duty that day. He informed him he would not be able to evacuate with everyone else and had to stay with the boiler. The safety officer didn't give him time to explain why. He just bluntly informed him that he was to treat the fire drill as if it was a real fire. No exceptions. When the fire bell finally rang, my uncle did exactly what he was told to do. He turned off the gas to the boilers, vented all the built-up steam, purged the water, and joined everyone outside. At the evacuation point, they were doing a head count when the production manager spotted my uncle and immediately approached him and asked what he was doing away from the boiler. He said he was participating in the fire drill as instructed, but not to worry as he had shut the boiler down completely. The color immediately drained from the manager's face. He was asked how long it would take to bring the boilers back online. Apparently, it would take hours alone just to fill the boilers with water and heat them up. The big issue was that because they had done an emergency purge, they were required to inspect every pipe, joint, and connection for damage before to make sure it was safe to start to reheat. The other boiler men were called in and they got paid double time to work through the night to get the boiler ready for the next day. Production staff all got sent home but still got paid for the day as it wasn't their fault the factory couldn't run. It cost them a day's production as well. Safety officer did his job, but for the next 40 years, the boiler staff are all exempt from fire drills. Anytime you make a demand or a rule and then you tack on that no exceptions, do what I say, you're basically opening the door for malicious compliance, because if it were me, I would have done the exact same thing. It's like, I'm literally going to do what you told me to do, and you're going to see why this is stupid. So, love it. Shadow Dragon 8685 commented, "This is why in the military, this is a drill is loudly announced when drills are commencing, because there are steps you do not want to take in a drill that you still must take in a real emergency. In the military, in, say, a submarine, that might involve actually purging the atmosphere in rooms that must not catch fire with halon gas while the crew in those compartments scurry to don their breathing masks. You don't actually do the hand purge when this is a drill. This is also why "this is not a drill" is a thing, and also callouts for using in a drill like actual casualty, usually followed by something like index, appropriate instructions for the actual emergency that broke out during the drill, short for end exercise. Sergeant Leading Hand was not very good at his job in the military. You don't get to be a sergeant without learning how to take second lieutenants aside and explain things to them that they're too booger-faced to understand, even when they technically outrank you. You also learn that when you're superior to an SME, subject matter expert, but that SME is trying to tell you something, you do not override their expertise with your authority without a goddamn good reason. Here's a refresher course on how to Sergeant 101 that day. I bet he also got a refresher course in how to stoic his way through a righteously deserved butt chewing. And at least your great uncle's boiler got an impromptu maintenance period. Edit. I was never in the military. Please don't thank me for service I never performed. For that matter, not every veteran likes it when you say thank you for your service, so just be respectful without saying those words unless you're pretty sure they want to hear it. I mean, be respectful in general, but be extra respectful without being sycophantic to veterans. I picked up all the above because I just listen. If a veteran in your life has something to say, listen to them. They may just need to offload some crap. They may have a crazy or wild or just funny, silly, or mundane story, but just listen. You'll pick up something to know, even if it's just the finer details of what it's like to burn a huge pit full of human crap with diesel fuel as accelerant. Slow Silver commented, "There's a story I saw from a UK submariner. Royal Navy ships have the phrase safeguard, which is used during drills to training if an actual emergency occurs. The PA will call, 'Safeguard, safeguard, fire, 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 fire in the laundry plant,' which happened on one submarine during a firefighting drill. Apparently, the fire was out in world record time." Our next story is, "Just tap there. Just tap there," said the cashier as they ignored me and the cash in my outstretched hand, and as they pointed to the credit card machine. After a few seconds of being told, repeatedly, "Over there, Poppy," I took them up on their word. I slapped the money against the card reader and said, loud enough for everyone around me to hear, "Hey, this machine isn't working. Maybe if I try sliding it through?" "Nope, still not working. Maybe you can do better." The other customers had witnessed how rudely I was being treated. They burst out laughing when the cashier finally looked at me and grabbed the money out of my hand. A few more cash-paying customers imitated me, laughing at that cashier's increasing upset. Yeah, if you're this tuned out to your job and what's going on in front of you, you deserve to be shamed a little bit. So definitely appreciate OP kind of going with the smart aleck path here. Just do your job, bro. Come on. Johnny Polite commented, "It's so strange when people don't pay attention while it registers. I was a cashier in college and a lady and her friend were talking in my line and being dismissive. I rang her up and told her the total. She handed me cash that was 50 cents short. I said, 'Ma'am, it's 50 more cents.' She rolled her eyes and said, 'I want to pay cash,' and went back to talking to her friend. I said, 'Yes, ma'am, do you have 50 more cents?' She turned toward me and very slowly and condescendingly said, 'I want to pay with that cash,' and pointed at what she handed to me. I said, 'Yes, ma'am,' and hit the cash button and entered the amount she gave me. I politely said, 'Okay, your total is 50 cents. How would you like to pay for that?' She realized what had happened and got embarrassed and said, 'I have 50 cents. To her friend's credit, she was laughing at her. With that being said, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed today's video, drop a like and a comment below, and if you want to check out our other videos, click the video on the right. With that being said, I'll see you all next time.